Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is known as Utah. And today's date, it is actually September 1st, 2015. On the East Coast is September 2nd of the same year. Yep, I'm still presiding within Roy City, Utah, which is north of Salt Lake City. Had to take care of a few things and did a little scenery, sightseeing in the downtown area. Pretty interesting. Beauty and Blighted. Talk about the homeless is a real big issue in the city of Salt Lake City. Pretty bad in the areas, but there's a lot of beautiful locations in that vicinity as well. So I'm just I was holding back on a little bit, so I'm being a little bit selective what I'm gonna be doing. So I want to do a few things locally in South Florida, some international and so forth. So not a whole lot. I don't know. I can't say a whole lot to be exact, but it's typical as usual, just winging it. So first, I'm going to be addressing. Came from the Sun Sentinel, one of three, and this one's entitled "Protesters Blast Reversal of Firing of Fort Lauderdale Officer." And came out today, and who was written by? Hold on, let's find out. Yeah, Barziski. Yeah, okay, no problem. So, as it reads here, group of protesters returned to City Hall on Tuesday night to criticize the city manager's decision to reverse the firing of a police officer who posted racially insensitive material on Facebook. The protesters used an item on the city commission agenda about architectural design work for the city's police station to tell commissioners that Officer Jeffrey Felderwart deserved to be fired rather than given a 10-day unpaid suspension. Demetrius Vaughn, who was arrested on charge of disorderly conduct at a February commission meeting while protesting police violence, told commissioners they were designing a building for a department that doesn't care about the people. Invest in your police department and get rid of these racist cops, Vaughn said. About 30 protesters were at the meeting and continued to chant for Felderwart's firing outside the commission chamber after speaking inside. Police Chief Frank Outerly, who was black, informed Felderly in June that he was being fired after an investigation to Facebook posts he had made. One item posted said, "Typical hood rat behavior," on an item about 3 African men involved in a bar fight. A profile of Felderwart used to show a skull wrapped in an American flag, a Fort Lauderdale police badge on his forehead, including the portion of the words "Savage Hunter." While not condoning the actions of the 20-year veteran, City Manager Lee Feldman said in July that the actual matter evaluated with the officer's record did not warrant termination. On Tuesday, Outerly said he did not have a problem with Feldman's decision, made after additional review. "I think when we get information from our attorneys that it is not a termination offense, it's pretty obvious you don't fire the officer," Adderley said. The protesters complained Feldman have gone back on his word about the city having no tolerance for racist behavior. Feldman made those comments in relation to 4 other officers, 3 who were fired and 1 who resigned, disciplined earlier this year for racist text messages they had sent. After listening to the protesters, City Commissioner Dean Trantillis requested the matter to be discussed at a future commission workshop. Mayor Jack Seiler, who said he met with Feldman on the issue, encourage Trentilis to do the same because of the personnel issues involved. Yeah, this is really touch a spark. Of course, I am not condoning his actions as Officer Jeffrey Felderwert's labor for what he has done on Facebook and so forth. Not defending the man whatsoever. But sometimes, folks, you have to look at the contractual agreement the city of Fort Lauderdale have with the police officers that are represented. He is represented by the Fraternal Order Police Lodge 38 to be exact. How those conditions of termination, disciplinary action, etc. And you can't just say get rid of racist cops. You have to terminate all forms of corruption within that particular entity. Like I said, I am censuring his actions. But the whole thing is, you have to really examine the grievance, his appeal, contractual agreements with the city of Fort Lauderdale under FOP, Fraternal Order Police, which is Lodge 38. That's what the city of Fort Lauderdale Police Department is represented by, which is public information. You can get it online. You can just type that in, even go through the city of Fort Lauderdale's website, and they have it in there. So it's public information. And in addition, even look at the reviews and so forth. You can get that from the city of Fort Lauderdale on the investigative reports on how everything went. That is public information guaranteed under Article 1, Section 24A, to be exact, of the Florida Constitution. So anyone can go there, look at it, do an audit on this particular matter. I will say this about Officer Felderwert. He may not be terminated, but don't be surprised if he becomes a desk jockey. Not on the streets, but a pencil pusher. And definitely, it is considered unbrotherly, because if he's represented by a by union, everyone, doesn't matter race, color, creed, I don't know about sexual orientation, maybe in their bylaws, I don't know, I haven't read it. You're supposed to represent everybody. Bigotry in this matter is a form of corruption, which is a nice black eye to the brotherhood. It's something people and him have to really think about. And furthermore, I'm going to be adding past page, which was on August 4th on this issue, which has multiple links. Be from the borrowed Palm Beach Times, New Times, right? New Times. And it has a few links in below there, so definitely check it out, including some video footage from Channel 10. And like I said, it is unacceptable, but based on his track record, that may have merit, did not have him officially terminated. So all I gotta say is look at their contract. Police Lodge is Fraternal Order Police Lodge 38 with the city of Fort Lauderdale, and they'll tell you everything on there. And I don't have it with me, but I'm just giving you that information, and you can go and look it for yourselves. So you gotta be methodical in these areas. Like the time about the body cameras. That could be considered a uniform negotiable condition. So you have to examine everything, and then you can use that intellectual ammunition can be beneficial. So I'm gonna say enough about that. Plus here, another one from the Sun Sentinel. It's from Brittany Wallman, if I'm correct. This one's entitled, Broward agrees to Uber's demand, pushes friendly law forward. And as it reads here, Uber is one step away from returning to Broward County and coming closer to legitimacy in Palm Beach and Miami-Dade counties as well. Majority of county commissioners voted Tuesday to send an Uber-friendly law to a final vote on September 17th, which would almost assuredly usher Uber back to Broward streets. Commissioners heard an hour of public input and debated for an additional hour and a half before the 6-3 to voting 6-3 to embrace the legal changes Uber is demanding. The popular California-based startup uses a smartphone app to connect riders with drivers who use their personal vehicles. The company retreated from Broward County this summer, refusing to offer its service here under regulations commissioners had passed. Uber is wrangling with leaders in Palm Beach and Miami-Dade counties as well, pushing for favorable laws that would allow it to self-regulate when it comes to checking out drivers and their vehicles, setting fares, and deciding how many vehicles to unleash the road. Local governments heavily regulated traditional taxis on those issues, and elected officials in South Florida and beyond have been reluctant to trust Uber or any other corporation to regulate itself. The company's insurance using surplus carrier also have been an issue in South Florida. The most controversial element of Broward County's latest proposal would allow Uber or any other transportation network company to operate temporarily with insurance that county staff believes is not compliance with state law. The company would have 6 months to get a determination from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles that insurance is sufficient. Though Uber has infuriated elected officials with its defined approach, it has been wildly successful in harnessing the power of the public. Broward and Palm Beach commissioners have said in recent weeks they've been convinced to let go of heavy regulation by the Uber riding public. I despise Uber. I detest this company, said Commissioner Stacy Ritter, part of the pro-Uber majority on Broward County's commission. Nevertheless, she says she wouldn't be accused of protecting the traditional taxi industry, which she has ignored the obvious need for improvement and must evolve or die. Well, you know, I gotta say about, hold on, I'll keep going here. Ritter said more people are turned into this issue than any other in her 17 years of office. What we tried to do is make the riding public safe, Ritter said. The riding public doesn't care. Well, I'll have to say about this, Commissioner Ritter, you just admit yourself, you are anti-free market, you are a proud neo-mercantile. Okay? You support neo-mercantilism. Prove me wrong if you dare. Yes, best votes move the Uber demanded rewrite forward, where Commissioners Ritter, Mark Bogan, Bean Fur, Marty Kyer, Chip LaMarca, and Mayor Tim Ryan. No votes for Commissioners Brian Shaif, Lois Wexler, and Dale Holness. Well, sorry to hear about that, because in good faith, them too wants more government regulations. What's going to be next in Broward County? Can we see when you have to learn to take a dump when we say so? I could just fart on their decision. We'll continue on here. Likewise, Palm Beach commissioners walked away from a stricter regulatory scheme, fearful Uber would behave as it did in Broward and leave. A vote on Uber friendlier measures is scheduled there September 22nd. Miami-Dade commissioners will likely to vote on Uber legalizing laws in the coming year. And Mike Hernandez, Director of Communications for Mayor Carlos Jimenez. Mayor Jimenez and his administration will continue to work with our commissioners to bring the regulatory code into the 21st century, he said, noting that there are an estimate 10,000 Uber drivers in the county. Uber's South Florida office is in Brickell District in downtown Miami. Meanwhile, the two other app-based ride service, Tapski and MyRide Plus, have attained licenses to operate in Broward. They want to partner with Uber, providing drivers. And so does Yellow Cab. Yellow Cab President John Camillo said he has been asking Uber representatives for 2 years now to allow his cab drivers to operate under the Uber app, as it done under the Uber taxi service in Washington, D.C. and other markets, but he hasn't gotten a clear answer. Pinning Uber down is trying to pick up Mercury with tweezers, Camillo said. Camillo fought Tuesday's legal compromise as commissioners to retain a requirement that drivers undergo fingerprint-based background checks. Yellow Cab also fought the insurance compromise, calling it unconstitutional. Now, maybe on a state level, they have to look at that. But fingerprints, yeah, man. Yeah, fingerprints. All hail to Big Brother. Woo! I will continue on here. Attorney Mark Stempler, representing Yellow Cab, warned commissioners that Broward cannot allow transportation network company vehicles to operate legally in the county under its ordinance for 6 months while in violation of Florida law. Pfft, who the hell cares what you think, Council Stempler? Sick and tired of your crap anyway. Sorry about that. But Mayor Ryan said he suggested a provision to avoid a long detour into the courts. Uber attorneys believe that insurance coverage meets state requirements. Ryan said the 6 months gives the state legislature the time to approve an insurance product tailored for drivers like Ubers who only partly use their vehicles commercially. Seems pretty fair under state law. The proposed changes to Broward's law would allow Uber or other companies to certify to the county that all drivers underwent a background check and their vehicles inspected. The county would be able to audit the records to spot check for compliance. All right, little pro and cons there, that's part of the deal. County Commissioner Holness said the company has already seen that Uber isn't forthright. We're going to trust these people, he asked. If we do, we need to have our heads examined. Well, I'll tell you one thing, Commissioner Holness, with all due respect. Why should we trust you as a governmental servant? You work for the people of Broward County, not the other way around. And based on this, you may have exposed yourself as for the bigger companies like allegedly Yellow Cab. Just allegedly. There's times you're right, but this here, I have to disagree with you. You might have to have your heads examined because if you think you're going to have the government rule over Broward County, no, you work for the people, and I do digress. Under the proposal, Uber would also have to negotiate an agreement to serve the airport and seaport, paying fees for each trip there. Accommodations would have to be made or disabled passengers. Vehicles would have to bear distinctive signage. Passengers would not be picked up curbside at the street hail without using the app. And drivers will also have to submit social security numbers to Uber. That's something I'm not too fond of. Little con game there too. Yeah, we want to submit social security numbers to Uber. Little that there's like, yeah, we want to find out if you file for the IRS. All hail to involuntary servitude, and they'll continue on. Uber's public policy director for Southeast United States, Trevor Venison, said that there are some issues in the proposal that need to be reworked, but he was confident it could be resolved. I think we're well on our way and look forward for the 17th, having a full baked piece to bring you, he said. And they have stuff here. A lot of other things are happening. Small stuff under action of the broader commissioners. Folks can read it yourself. There's some little pros and cons as usual. But one thing I'll say, it's a good start. Make it better. For sure. But like I said, some of the commissioners, they have to get their heads on right, because, hey, you believe that you're smarter than everybody else? I'm sorry. There's some things you may have been mistaken about. Trust those drivers. Hey, we shouldn't trust you. Never, ever trust the government. Respectfully. Whether it's federal, state, or local. But on the other hand, Uber will be back. People will be supporting. I disagree about they should get the Social Security numbers, because technically, it's none of their damn business. Let them be. If they want to pay their certain taxes, that'll be their priority. So that's one thing you have to really focus on. And the truth of the matter is, smart Uber drivers, if they do those filing, they can look through. They can do their logs and all that. So nothing really be too crazy about. But like I said, it has its pros and cons. It'd be a good start to bring back Uber and other companies pertaining to this particular entity, and make it better and better, improve it. So everything can be done by steps. So, but like I said, it's pretty interesting. At least it's a victory for Uber on many occasions. But we have to just always remain vigilant as usual. So, and next one came from the Sun Sentinel again. And this one is entitled, Joe Biden heads to South Florida as he considers running for president, by Anthony Mann. So, let's just see what they have to say about this. As it reads, as Vice President Joe Biden weighs in whether to take on Hillary Clinton, he'll be gathering political intelligence and gauging potential support for a presidential campaign during a 2-day trip to South Florida. Biden has a range of official and political business on his schedule Wednesday and Thursday, discussing college affordability and workforce training at community colleges at Miami-Dade College, sealing the nuclear agreement with Iran before gathering of Jewish leaders in Davie, and mingling with major Florida campaign donors when he headlined a fundraiser dinner for U.S. Senate Bill Nelson and other Democratic senators. At every stop, Biden's words and actions will be scrutinized for clues about whether he will seek the Democratic nomination for president. No state is more important than Florida in the presidential election. It's the biggest swing state in the U.S., awarding more than 10% of the electoral votes required to win the presidency, and it's a state in which Clinton has long enjoyed a wide reservoir of supporting among Democrats. Biden's admirers in Florida have become more vocal about their desire for Biden presidential candidacy, as Clinton's polls numbers have softened, and increasing numbers of voters view her as untrustworthy. Oh, really? you want Biden there? I'm going to continue on here. He should run, said Senator Jeremy Rigg, a Democrat who represents Northwest Broward. If Joe Biden runs, sign me up. I would be one of his biggest supporters. Why? Continue on here. Ring isn't a Biden newcomer. Before Biden's campaign for the 2008 presidential nomination fizzled, Ring championed his candidacy. He recalls it as a solo charge when virtually every other elected official in South Florida was supporting Clinton. I like to say this, not elected official, elected servants. Ring said the intervening 8 years have strengthened his support. He would be a better president, Ring said. He can rally a country. He doesn't have the stains. He has more stains than you and everyone else in the great state of Delaware combined, okay? People trust him. He speaks with you or to you and not at you. He's approachable. Yeah, if you're a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, yeah, that's real approachable, right? Like other supporters, Ring praised the vice president's ability to connect with working class voters and the superhuman strength he's displayed through personal tragedies. The 1972 deaths of his first wife and year-old daughter, and in May, deaths of his son, Bo, which is morose, and I will say that. Very morose in that area. So I'm not going to go after him on that area whatsoever. I have better dignity. However, when it comes to his actions, that's a whole different ballgame. And I will continue on. Biden isn't a stranger to Florida. He visited more than 30 times since he became vice president, including multiple appearances at Broward and Palm Beach retiree-filled condominium communities and delivering the consentment address to the class of 2012 at Western Cypress Bay High School, a decade before as a U.S. Senator from Delaware, who was on the campaign trail on behalf of Bill McBride, the party's 2002 candidate for Florida governor. Gordon Deckelbaum, a semi-retired real estate developer, former chairman of the Jewish Federation of Broward County, and Angelo Sands, the golf coach at Florida Atlantic University, both contributed to Biden's previous presidential effort. I have thought for a while that he would be the last man in the country for a job. I've been hoping for months that he would take this on, said Deckelbaum, who lives in Hollywood. Like Ring, he said Biden has shown he can work across the political aisle with Republicans and overcome partisan gridlock in Washington. Sands, the former mayor of Newcastle, Pennsylvania, who now lives in Boca Raton, said he got to know Pennsylvania native Biden during the Jimmy Carter era in the late 1970s. He's a really good man, he said. If Joe runs, I'm there. Broward County Commissioner Stacey Ritter, who was one of the handful of prominent South Florida Democrats who supported Barack Obama earlier in his first presidential campaign, said she's so far unaffiliated in the 2016 contest. I'm looking forward to the president making a decision, she said. There's a place for someone else in the field. Though polling shows Clinton first among Democrats in Florida and nationally, Ritter said anyone who was convinced Clinton is the sure winner of the 2016 Democratic presidential nomination is forgetting 2008, when she lost the primary race to Obama. 8 years ago, I heard it was locked up for Hillary Clinton, and it turned out to be not the case. Of course. On August 20th, Quinnipiac University of poll of Florida Democrats found 48% supporting Clinton, 15% for U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, and 11% for Biden. Clinton lost a quarter of her support from a previous survey 9 weeks earlier. To Steve Scale, a Biden supporter who was Obama's Florida's campaign director in 2008 and senior advisor to his 2012 re-election campaign, said, voters know Biden isn't, at least for now, a candidate, something that holds down the number who identifies themselves as supporters when pollsters call. A deeper look at the other poll questions shows Biden is usually more popular than Clinton or Sanders. Roy said Clinton's 37% favorability and 55% unfavorability are a concern. The wrong one goes up and the right one goes down. Biden, by contrast, is 44% favorable, 43% favorable. Both are viewed by 80% of Democrats, and 52% of voters said Biden is honest and trustworthy. 64% of voters said Clinton isn't honest and trustworthy. When you folks are going to learn you don't trust the government. Okay? Keep on going here. Republicans are using Biden's Florida trip as an opportunity to play up Clinton's negatives. Republican National Committee spokeswoman Ali Pardo said it is not surprising that Democrats are unsatisfied and looking for their options. We are 15 months out from the elections and Hillary Clinton has already lost the trust of a large majority of voters, and yet doubles down and continues to mislead Americans about her secret email server and flip-flop on issues for political gain. The National Draft Biden Super Political Action Committee has signed up almost 100 Florida volunteers, as a spokeswoman said. Their mission is to recruit more supporters, promote the vice president, and to attempt to secure endorsements from elected officials. Servants. Will there be people supporting him? Absolutely, said Clinton supporter Mitch Caesar, who's taken a leave of absence as Broward Democratic Party chairman to run for the clerk of circuit court. This would still be Hillary country. My. Well, to be very honest, I am not a Joe Biden supporter based on his unconstitutional decisions. Plus, he is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, which is a major conflict of interest. Furthermore, you got a bunch of folks out there don't even know their Bill of Rights culture. They just want things their own damn way. That's how Biden is. I'll be very sincere. When I was a friend of mine doing camping in New Mexico, I had my radio, and when Senator Barack Obama nominated Joe Biden as the front runner, we were laughing so hard. We were laughing like good 10-15 minutes. During that time, a camper came up to us because he heard us from the other side, and they go, "What's so funny?" We asked him. We said, "You know who Barack Obama's running mate is?" You know who? Joe Biden. That person bust out laughing, went down to the hill, and they started laughing as well. It's another example, my friends, of bread and circuses. Everyone's going after Trump, which I understand to a lot of areas. I am not too keen of him, but doesn't mean he's always wrong. So now the Democrats going to bring in their clowns, allegedly speaking. And it's not just going after both parties, but you got too many people with dirty hands. Oh, they're not trustworthy. No, you don't trust these people. I've been saying this for a long time. And a guy like Joe Biden, he is not constitutional friendly. Just like his sidekick or comrade, Barack Obama. They're just examples of the tool. Two separate wings from the same vulture. And that's why I look at these major parties. And Biden, you know what? Don't even run. Be with your family. That's a bit more essential right now. You don't even have the courage to really talk to people from the alternative media. You just run the other way. I've seen it happen, and you start calling them names. That's why I can't say you're the person I'm going to support. I am not, for sure. And anyone have a beef with that? You know how to contact me. All right. Here's the one over here. Came from Conrad Stachino. This is from NEO journal-neo.org. Wow, sorry about that. I must have a little yawn there. If I'm correct. Yeah, New Eastern Outlook. That's the name of the site. Good site. You should always check it out. And this one's entitled Ukraine, not Russia, is the main threat to Poland. As it reads here, Banderistan grows in strength. Only someone completely fooled by propaganda or deliberately misleading can claim otherwise. Unfortunately, all these categories, including people governing in Poland. The defeat of President Bronislaw Komorowski, the main advocate for Ukrainian-Polish reconciliation, surprised me a bit. Moreover, I thought, as just probably Mr. Komorowski, that his presidency will last forever, that Poland will kneel in the front of Ukraine and do what we have been doing to the United States. It was called by the former Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski blowjob. Hey, it's on there, so. Not that I have anything against reconciliation between Poles and Ukrainians. However, at the stage where Ukraine is Ukraine now, something so daring as reconciliation between Poland and Ukraine is not possible at all. Part of the so-called Polish political class has already understood that maybe that it is not a good direction. However, they figured out that it is a little too late. Thanks to the generosity support, a genocidal ideology plague has already been bred in Ukraine, and there is no indication that it's going to disappear soon. Ukrainian patriots are not, as they are represented by multiple lobbyists for Ukraine in Poland, harmless students. We aren't police. We can act a bit more radically. These are the words of Andrea Sanin, a local organizer of the right sector, said after taking over duties of police by the right sector in Kharkiv. In Poland, since the outbreak of Maidan, almost every Polish citizen was commanded to love the struggle for independence of the Ukrainians. Anyone who has internet could see on their own eyes how Ukraine gained this independency. At present, there is a combination of Bandia right sector, Azov, etc., Nazis and worshippers of Oscar de la Ranger from such units as Misanthropic Division, who fights in the ranks of Azov. Significant example of the ideological similarities of the formers, that is, ISIS and neo-Nazis in Ukraine, is also what recently happened in Sarikino in Mariupol, where patriots from Misanthropic Division fighting in the ranks of Azov publicly burned icons and Bibles. On the picture, we can see them showing a flag with the inscription, Toten for Wotan, killing for Wotan, Odin. It's always been typical like that. Yeah, wantonness is before oldness. So I will continue on here. The fact that the right sector is now entering officially in the structure of the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence, to form a special group Alpha, is perhaps of a new stage of the Ukrainian revolution, which was mentioned in Jarzo's speech. It will help Ukrainian patriots to get weapons, specialized training, money, and above all, the legitimacy of the government for their actions, although unfortunately not everyone is so optimistic about this novel idea. I hope leaders The SBU and Alpha will have enough common sense not to accept absolutely unprepared and, from the psychological point of view, inadequate people in their ranks. Preparation of a Spetsnaz officers requires more than 1 year. In the Soviet years, Alpha was a rather strong division with good school. All the credit was taken to Peter Zakrzewski, according to the president of the Association of Veterans of Anti-Terrorist Division, Alpha, Sergei Goncharov. If these volunteers would become part of the SBU, it won't be an elite anti-terror division, but the rabble. Why patriots are not suitable candidates from the psychological point of view. And we can see on this record how will Ukraine look like in the hands of those people serving in the SBU. It is easy to predict. Government of Hungary realizes this fact and protects their national minorities in Ukraine. Entry of patriots from the RS into the structure of the Ukrainian intelligence means only that the Bandera and the neo-Nazi ideology is becoming, maybe it has already become, an official political doctrine for Ukraine and the people who hold it installed in the official structures of the state, which will have an impact of the functioning of the entire country. Polish presidential candidate Grzegorz Braun said, "Since the end of World War II, there are no people in Europe who armed themselves," referring with possible sentiment to the tradition of murdering of Poles and Jews. However, as you can see, it happened. Now, even those Poles who personally sent Ukrainians bulletproof vests to support them in the fight against Russian aggression changed their mind and now are alerting Poles about the threat from neo-Nazis and Bandera supporters from Ukraine. Tomasz Maciejczuk, the Open Dialogue Foundation volunteer who delivered the Polish bulletproof vests for Ukrainians fighters on the front, said, "Anyway, it's worth talking and explaining to Ukrainians why the swastika, the SS Duraranga symbol, or Volhyna massacre are extremely negative and wanted elements. Our voice must be heard. The dialogue must finally begin." After months of the Polish support and propaganda for Ukraine, it isn't too late for naive gestures of talking and explaining to Ukrainians why the swastika, the SS Durlanger symbols, or Volhyna massacre are extremely negative and undesirable. I think that a large part of the Ukrainians, despite doubts of Mr. Maciejczuk, is well aware of why the swastika is not exactly our favorite symbol. Meanwhile, during these educational talks of Mr. Maciejczuk, the right sector enters into the structure of government and wants to overthrow the president and continue the fight in the Donbass. Not as so-called terrorist operations, but as a normal, regular war with Russia. According to Ukrainian leadership, part of the irregular units of the army does not want to fight anymore. Part of the army wants to overthrow the government in Kyiv. Others want to dodge the military service in the Ukrainian army. That's why Ukrainian patriots entering the SBU has become one of the main and real forces in Ukraine. Only a small spark is needed to aggravate and lead to a real conflict in Polish-Ukrainian relations. Volunteer battalions established by Polish Exportal that patrol of the Polish-Ukrainian borders in search of Bandera member militias show us the state of these relationships. It also demonstrated by how the Polish League of fans were treated in Kyiv. They, Ukrainian fans, had knives and slashed us like hunted animals, or by incident in which Ukrainians beat 3 employees of the Polish embassy in Kyiv. It is also proven by the change in official media narrative in Poland and abroad. The threat from Russia is now shifted to Ukraine. It is noted that the Ukrainians are not such exemplary Democrats as we used to think. Historians and lecturer Andrzej Dalpolowski, PhD, said, there are tens of thousands of weapons out of control in Ukraine. There is an ideology that inspired young people in the west of the country. If no one in this country does not mind the fact, for several months, hundreds of kilometers from the front political militias paraded on the streets with guns. What more do you need? In fact, the threat is at our borders. To illustrate this in a slightly different manner, I will use as an anecdote. My friends work in the bar in Krakow, Polish city. Once I came to work for a coffee. Behind the bar, the bartender was a Ukrainian, and another Ukrainian stood drinking. I got a discussion with the Ukrainian drinking outside the bar. He told me that he is a member of the right sector, but that doesn't mean anything because the right sector is different than Bandera supporters from the past. They like Poles. Besides, only about 2,000 militants of the right sector is actually under arms, so there is nothing to fear. The gentleman, as it turned out, works in one of the Kharkov's bars. The same friend also told me that the greatest number of people who apply for jobs in this bar are Ukrainians, which is certainly very good news for Polish entrepreneurs who, in order to cut their cost, will be able to employ Ukrainians illegally as a cheap laborer, instead of Polish people complaining all the time about the rates and working conditions. On the other hand, maybe there is nothing to be afraid of, even if someone happened in Poland from the side of Bandera patriots. We are protected by Fraternal Assistance Act, which says that as a result of the country's security threats, the officers of foreign states will be able to operate legally on Polish streets, including permission to use weapons. What officers? Perhaps the officers of nationality, which holds 90% of the media in Poland. Of this nationality, the UPA heroes willingly collaborate with during Second World War. Yeah, it's some real interesting times are happening there in Ukraine. Division, bigotry, assumptions. We can still use this part of the grand chessboard scheme, Sergei Brzezinski's vision. Got Ukraine, move on. So this is going to be something that can actually get people to be aware. But using Ukrainians in Poland, cheap labor, illegal aliens, undocumented workers. It's happening everywhere, my friends. That's just another example. But we just got to keep our eyes and ears open. Pay attention to what's going on in that region. Is this going to be World War III, Club of Rome vision? Nothing's really set in stone, so you just gotta hope for the best in that area. Make sure Eurasia will be fulfilled with true peace, security, and spiritual prosperity. And that's gotta say about that there. Yeah, I'm just getting a little sleepy here. Boop. Next one here came out Sunday to be exact. And of course, everyone wants to go after China. But this is what Dr. Ron Paul has to say from the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. It's entitled, "Blame the Federal Reserve, not China, for a stock market crash." Alright, sorry about that. No delay. And as it reads here, following Monday's historic stock market downturn, many politicians, so-called economic experts, refused rushed to the microphone to explain why the market crashed and to propose solutions to our economic woes. Not surprisingly, most of those commenting not only failed to give the right answers, they failed to ask the right questions. Many blame the crash on China's recent currency devaluation. It is true that the crash was caused by a flawed monetary policy. However, the fault lies not with China's central bank, but with the U.S. Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve's inflationary policies distort the economy, creating bubbles, which in turn create a booming stock market and the illusion of widespread prosperity. Inevitably, the bubbles burst, the market crashes, and the economy sinks into a recession. One moment, folks. Sorry about that. Increasing number of politicians have acknowledged the flaws in our monetary system. Unfortunately, some members of Congress think the solution is to force the Fed to follow a rules-based monetary policy. Forcing the Fed to follow the rule does not change the fact that giving a secretive central bank the power to set interest rates is a recipe for economic chaos. Interest rates are the price of money, and like all prices, they should be set by the market, not by the central bank, and certainly not by Congress. Instead of trying to fix the Federal Reserve, Congress should start restoring a free market monetary system. The first step is to pass the audit the Fed legislation so that people can finally learn the full truth about the Fed. Congress should also pass legislation ensuring individuals can use alternative currencies free of government harassment. When bubbles burst and recession hit, Congress and the Federal Reserve should refrain from trying to stimulate the economy via increased spending, corporate bailouts, and inflation. The only way the economy will ever fully recover is if Congress and the Fed allow the recession to run its course. Of course, Congress and the Fed are unlikely to just stand there. If their economy further deteriorates, they have already been reported that the Fed will use this last week's crash as an excuse to once again delay raising interest rates. Increased spending and money creation may temporarily boost the economy, but eventually they will lead to a collapse in the dollar's value, an economic crisis more severe than the Great Depression. Ironically, considering how popular China bashing has become, China's large purchase of U.S. Treasury notes has helped the U.S. postpone the day of reckoning. The main reason countries like China are eager to help finance our debt is the dollar's world reserve currency status. However, there are signs that concerns over the U.S. government's fiscal irresponsibility and resentment of our foreign policy will cause another currency or currencies to replace the dollar as a world reserve currency. If this occurs, the U.S. will face a major dollar crisis. Congress will not adapt sensible economic policies until the people demand it. Unfortunately, while an ever-increasing number of Americans are embracing Austrian economics, too many Americans still believe they must sacrifice their liberties in order to obtain economic and personal security. This is why many are embracing the charismatic crony capitalist who is peddling like a snake oil composed of protectionism, nationalism, and authoritarianism. Eventually, the United States will have to abandon the welfare state, and the fiat money system that fuels Leviathan's growth. Hopefully, the change will happen because the ideas of liberty have triumphed, not because a major economic crisis leaves the government with no other serve. You say think the same way, my friends. This is why when I hear these political figureheads, even Donald Trump's going China bashing, give me a break. With all due respect, Donald, I recommend you get a toupee with a brain, because that rhetoric is, say, inapplicable. You can't con a con man, my friend. And that's just an example. And of course, go back to sound money. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. I'll have the clause in the back of my head. I think it may be 5. I could be mistaken. Congress can regulate money. And if you look at Article 1, Section 10, the states can use gold. Only thing they can make money is gold and silver coins. Okay, and even sound money in the United States, gold and silver. So sound money is essential. And they say, oh, wow, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. Another thing we could start doing, too, is get rid of the fiat system and revise it. Be a good start would be the fiduciary note that have commodity banking. We got to repeal that 1971 sham that the Nixon administration and Congress was involved on getting rid of the gold standard or the commodity standard. All right. And 2, we should keep our gold and silver, period. We should wipe our behinds. That one executive order which Franklin Delano Roosevelt wrote: if you turn in your gold or go to jail. At that time, I would probably wipe my butt on it as toilet paper and give it back to him with a big smile on my face. That's how I see these things. The Federal Reserve is just another big banking scheme of the one world order. So, Congressman Paul, he's correct on this. Like him or not, that's your decision. But this article here makes sense. All right. This one here comes from Activist Post. It came out on the 27th, if I'm correct. It says here, is Virginia shooting hoax blown up in the mainstream media's face? It's by Joe Wright. It says here, gun control false flag crisis actors be warned. Facial recognition search software is going to bust you. Funny, the technology is easy enough to use on Facebook. One has to wonder why mainstream media and police did not use it for these alleged mass shooter events. Actually, this is even bigger warning to the billionaire philanthropists who back aggressive gun control initiatives and are likely backing these stage events. You've hired horrible actors. You're going to get busted unless you back off. But Alice, we know your allegiance to the UN Small Arms Treaty requires you to push forward despite a growing number who know your game. The latest reported shooting hoax in Virginia is getting so easily torn apart by the conspiracy research community that media's emotional staging of actors is becoming absurd. The latest discovery is that Allison Parker's alleged fiancé, Chris Hurst, who has only 8 social media photos of him with Allison, is probably just her TV boyfriend. A guy named Daniel Waltz has been ousted by facial recognition as her real-world boyfriend. Some media photos of Allison are taken directly from Waltz's Facebook account, which is now curiously unavailable. Not surprisingly, Daniel Waltz is also a filmmaker. His YouTube channel described as combined efforts of work featuring independent films, concert videos, and film trailers. A video posted to his YouTube channel is a link for that. Has a description: something I made. I was still learning film. Kind of crappy, but whatever. Video below. It says here, this might be the best insurance company. Us an ad. Sorry about that. Waltz posted a creepy new video to his YouTube channel today. After a 7-month break, a shirtless rendition of a song for Allison. When will the media interview this guy who was clearly a huge part of her life? Many have already pointed out the acting background of the supposed father of the victim, Allison Parker, Andy Parker. Perhaps it's a coincidence that his background re-dyed him for appearing every day on TV since, and including the same day his daughter was allegedly murdered. From description to a recent Dutch scene video, while playing the banker, Andy Parker is also simultaneously doing Broadway plays and TV commercials, reaching back multiple years. To top it off, he's also a former politician. He's a real jack of all trades, it would seem. Picture of Andy Parker's latest performance as the lead star of Les Miserables. See screenshots from his 2013 performance here. There's a link for that. As all the alleged mass shootings are immediately capitalized on by fake family members, the call for more gun control. The media and lawmakers are either completely in on the fraud or they're being played like fools. When will they wake up? Update, another amazing compilation of the crisis actors working on this hoax. So, that's why, my friends, you have to question everything, especially when it comes to over-exploitation, the whole song and dance. And what's amazing is people using the technology to really verify about these folks. So it's a counter-exploitation, I would say, which is alright. And the bottom line is this: accuracy is essential. When you see someone hype it up and going overboard, you gotta really look at it a lot thorough. That happened with the Sandy Hook shooting. Look at the exploitation that happened on 9/11. They attacked us because of our freedoms. And of course, that one shooter in Charleston, South Carolina, exploited that big time. That's the reason that one congresswoman said, one senator from South Carolina goes, "Oh, what brought us here today? What brought us here today was the Charleston shootings." Right out of Ed Benazes' playbook. This is what a lot of these mainstream media likes to use. They like to use the public relations, propaganda to be exact, by Edward Bernays. I know I've been harping that so many times in the past, but if you read it, you understand where I'm coming from. So always observe responsibly, never believe, never jump on the hype. Always think thoroughly. Alright, this one here is international related. It came out a while back. I think it came out on the 30th, I'm not so sure. Let me see here. Oh, sorry about that. Wow. And I think it came out on the 30th, yeah. This is from The Guardian. It's entitled, "Hungary Closes Budapest Station to Refugees." And as it says here, Hungarian authorities have closed Budapest's main station to refugees and migrants following the chaotic scenes on Monday, when people who had been camped outside for weeks were suddenly allowed to leave for Austria and Germany without visa checks. The move followed the station's complete closure earlier, when all trains to the west had been stopped from leaving. Police in helmets and wielding batons surrounded Kaleti Station's grand, crumbling facade, and dozens of refugees and migrants who were inside were forced out. The government spokesman said Hungary was trying to enforce EU law, which requires anyone who wishes to travel in the borderless Schengen zone to have a valid passport and visa. There's a layer page for that too. The closure of the station to refugees and migrants appeared prompt, in part by pressure from the other EU countries trying to cope with arrivals from Hungary. Hundreds demonstrated outside the station demanding that it be reopened to them and they would be allowed to travel on to Germany. Having the end of their journey in sight, they bought tickets at around €100 per person, only to be denied entry on Tuesday morning. Why they sold us return tickets? We are refugees. We are one way, said Mohammed, who had traveled from Damascus with his uncle and cousins. These people are thieves. Rafur Kozma, 30, from Syria, said, I came here and they bought a ticket for 3 people to Munich. It was 370 euro dollars and 20 cents. My train was at 7 a.m. this morning and the police didn't let me into the station. And after you see what happened, there were chaotic scenes at railway stations in Germany on Tuesday as around 2,000 refugees and migrants arrived on trains from Hungary overnight. Police said thousands more were expected throughout the day. Police stations in Munich and Rehiring in Bavaria escorted passengers, mostly from Syria, but also from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Eritrea, off the trains, exhausted and dehydrated. After long journeys, they were taken to reception centers across Bavaria. Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, has said that Germany could cope with the numbers, but on Tuesday, she again stressed the need of a fair distribution of refugees across the EU. She made her comments at a joint press conference in Berlin with Spain's Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy before talks at which the migration crisis was to be the main focus, as people shouting, "Germany, Germany," were locked out of Budapest's Kaledi station on Tuesday, after others were allowed to travel unhindered to Germany and Austria on Monday. Both Berlin and Vienna demanded answers from Hungary's government. Austria's Chancellor Werner Faymann did not hide this furious towards Hungary Prime Minister Viktor Orban, calling on him to ensure the refugees were registered before allowing them to cross the border. That they are simply getting on board in Budapest, and they make sure they travel to the neighboring country. What sort of politics is that? He said on Austrian TV. Many who arrived in Vienna on Monday traveled on to Salzburg on the border with Germany, where they spent the night at the railway station and were looked after by charity organizations. Fewer than 10 of about 3,600 people who arrived in Austria had applied for asylum there, the authorities said. The rest said they want to go to Germany. As the German authorities also questioned why Vienna had let many on the trains carry on to Germany, Austria's Interior Minister Johanna Micky-Leitner accused Berlin of bringing the situation on itself. Merkel's government had awakened hopes in refugees when it stated last week it would not turn those from Syria back, he said. Refugees who arrive at Munich station on overnight trains chanted, "HLB Angela Merkel, I love Angela Merkel." Volunteer organizations set up makeshift arrangements to feed and provide water to new arrivals in Munich. Instead, the city's police said they had to reinforce water supplies. Commuters on their way to work in Munich brought brazel or bread rolls and bottles of water and handed them to the exhausted refugees. Police in the city later appealed to the public to stop bringing gifts for refugees, announcing in the tweet that they had been overwhelmed by the amount of provisions left at Munich station, including foodstuffs and nappies. Bavaria's Interior Minister Joachim Herrmann stressed that none of the refugees from Syria will be sent back to Hungary, as would be usual to EU rules, but would instead be sent to the reception centers. The Schengen agreement requires refugees to seek asylum in the first country they enter under the EU's Dublin Accord. But last week, Berlin said it has suspended the requirement for Syrians who were not permitted to stay in Germany and apply for refugee status. The move has angered Hungary, which has said it would encourage more migrants to make the journey to Europe. Merkel said sent out her strongest message yet on Monday that Germany was bolstering its efforts to deal with the crisis, saying Germany is a strong country and the motive must be, we've managed so much, we can manage this, she told a news conference in Berlin. She said, however, the situation should be seen in its European dimension. If Europe fails over the refugee question, it will not be the Europe that we had imagined, she said. Michael Fuchs, the deputy leader of the Conservative Christian Democratic Union, Christian Social Union, Leont and Bundestag called for more to be done to integrate refugees into the German workplace. He called on the government to set up language courses and to send job center employees to reception areas to assess newcomer qualifications. It makes no sense for them to be hanging around in camps, he told German DFL radio. They will only lead to ghetto-style circumstances. Fuchs added that the number of people expected to seek an asylum in Germany would likely need it to be revised again from the 800,000 figure given by the Interior Minister Thomas de Maizière 2 weeks ago. I recall at the start of the year, we were talking about 200,000 people yesterday. The figure of 1 million was doing the rounds. It is going up in a manner in which could never have imagined. Neither should we be under the impression that this influx will be over by the end of the year. It is likely to continue in the same vein next year, he said. Hungarian police have arrested opposition politicians and journalists Georgi Kakyuk closed the town of Rozetsky after he took bolt cutters to a barbed wire fence erected between Hungary and Serbia to stop refugees coming through. The news portal Sajma.hu, which is a Hungarian news website, reported that Kaku and Serbian journalist Milika Manek Stajovic had wanted to protest against the barrier. Well, my friends. This is part, in my view, the Club of Rome agenda. Look what happened to the European Union. They're all starting to point fingers on what's going on. And what's going on in those war-torn nations that was addressed in this article. The whole game is, my friends, let's try to integrate everybody, end sovereign nations, and destroy heritage. White European heritage is being affected on this as well. It's like another example of neo-colonialism and what's happening in Hungary and across the European Union. Even the United States, Canada, Mexico, they're all trying to flood people in. Part of the North American Union. Same thing happening in Australia with Oceania. Club of Rome, my friends. 101. It's a real damn shame. We gotta stop getting these countries need to stop getting involved with foreign entanglements. That's a big issue. It's been going on for a long time. Look what's going on in Syria. Disturbing. Big time. Using New World Order agents such as ISIS. And then you can't get the people out of Iraq. Now you got ISIS. Well, blame the president. Like I said, I'm not a big Obama supporter, but you know what? He's only a patsy. But this here, my friends, is forced integration. stepping on everyone else's toes. I'm not condemning the refugees in general, but remember, here's one thing for sure. Their homeland is being bombarded. This is why this influx is happening, even though it's European nation. The people can make all white genocide, European genocide? Yeah, I can say that. You know how I feel about it. I condemn everything with a passion on that. Genocide doesn't matter. But what we're seeing here is destroying national sovereignty and heritage and culture. It is completely wrong. And the refugees that are in here are just the pawns. Don't scapegoat them. They're just an example of the pawns game. But hope for the best for the people out there. And one day, they can come back to their homeland. And I have to commend too that they have to learn. They better learn the languages and the customs, not the other way around. There's the thing people gotta look at. But this is a real shame. As I say, it's part of the Club of Rome agenda, also known as the New World Order. Alright, finally, good colleague of mine got this thing on peacefreedomprosperity.com, and it says here, the greatest speech ever grants. The greatest speech ever. Grant speech from the Iron Web by Larkin Rose. And James Cox wrote it. But the whole thing is based on the person's speech, which there's a link for that on YouTube. And instead of me reading it, I'm going to let you listen to it. So, one moment here.
You cannot begin to imagine in how many ways the world is the opposite of what you have been taught to believe. You see the guy who sells drugs to willing customers so he can feed his family as the scum of the earth, while you see the hypocrite who gives away stolen money in the name of government as a saint. You see the guy who tries to avoid being robbed by the federal thugs as a crook and a tax cheat, but see as virtuous the politician who gives away the same stolen loot to people to whom it does not belong. You see the cop as a good guy when he drags a man away from his friends and family and throws him in prison for 10 years for smoking a leaf. And you see anyone who defends himself from such barbaric fascism as the lowest form of life, a cop killer. In reality, most drug dealers are more virtuous than any government social worker, and prostitutes have far less to be ashamed of than political whores, because they trade only with what is rightfully theirs, and only with those who want to trade with them. The upstanding, church-going, law-abiding, tax-paying citizen who votes Democrat or Republican is far more despicable and a bigger threat to humanity than the most promiscuous, lazy, drug-snorting hippie. Why? Because the hippie is willing to let others be free, and the voter is not. The damage done to society by bad habits and loose morality is nothing compared to the damage done to society by the self-righteous violence committed in the name of the state. You imagine yourselves to be charitable and tolerant when you are nothing of the sort. Even the Nazis had table manners and proper etiquette when they weren't killing people. You think you're good people because you say please and thank you? You think sitting in that big building on Sunday makes you noble and righteous? The difference between you and a common thief is that the thief has the honesty to commit the crime himself, while you whine for government to do your stealing for you. The difference between you and the street thug is that the thug is open about the violence he commits, while you let others forcibly control your neighbors on your behalf. You advocate theft, harassment, assault, and even murder, but accept no responsibility for doing so. You old folks want the government to steal from your kids so you can get your monthly check. You parents want all your neighbors to be robbed to pay for your kids' schooling. You all vote for whichever crook promises to steal money from other people to pay for what you want. You demand that those people who engage in behaviors you don't approve of be dragged off and locked up, but feel no guilt for the countless lives your whims have destroyed. You even call the government thugs your representatives, and yet you never take responsibility for the evil they commit. You proudly support the troops as they kill whomever the liars in D.C. tell them to kill, and you feel good about it. You call yourselves Christians or Jews or claim to follow some other religion, but the truth is what you call your religion is empty window dressing. What you truly worship, the God you really bow to, what you really believe in is the state. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, unless you can do it by way of government. Then it's just fine, isn't it? If you call it taxation and war, it stops being a sin, right? After all, it was only your God that said you shouldn't steal and murder, but the state said it was okay. It's pretty obvious which one outranks the other in your minds. Despite all the churches, synagogues, and mosques we see around us, this nation has one God and only one God, and that God is called government. Jesus taught nonviolence and told you to love your neighbor, but the state encourages you to vote for people who will use the violence of government to butt into every aspect of everyone else's life. Which do you believe? To those about to stone a woman who had committed adultery, Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." But the state says it's perfectly fine to lock someone up if they do something you find distasteful, such as prostitution. Which do you believe? The Christian God says, "Thou shalt not covet," but coveting is the lifeblood of the beast that is the state. You were taught to resent, despise, and hate anyone who has anything you don't have. You clamor for the state to tear other people down, steal their property, and give it to you. And you call that fairness. The Bible calls it coveting and stealing. You are not Christians. You are not Jews. You are not Muslims. And you certainly aren't atheists. You all have the same God, and its name is government. You're all members of the most evil, insane, destructive cult in history. If there ever was a devil, the state is it, and you worship it with all your heart and soul. You pray to it to solve every problem, to satisfy all your needs, to smite your enemies, and to shower its blessings upon you. You worship what Nietzsche called the coldest of all cold monsters, and you hate those of us who don't. To you, the greatest sin is disobeying your God, breaking the law, you call it, as if anyone could possibly have any moral obligation to obey the arbitrary commands and demands of the corrupt, lying, delusional megalomaniacs who infest this despicable town. Even your ministers, priests, and rabbis, more often than not, are traitors to their own religions, teaching that the commands of human authority should supersede adherence to the laws of the gods they say they believe in. Several years ago, I heard one pompous evangelical jackass in particular pontificating on the radio that anyone who disobeys the civil authority, be it a king or any other government, is engaging in rebellion against God. Those were the exact words he used. What if the government is doing something wrong? Well, this salesman for Satan opined, that is the business of those in government, and you are still obligated to obey. Everywhere you turn, be it the state or the church, the media or the schools, you are taught one thing above all else, the virtue of subjugating yourselves to mortals who claim to have the right to rule you. It is sickening the reverence with which you speak of the liars and thieves whose feet are so firmly planted on your necks. You call the congressmen and the judges honorable, and you swoon at the magnificence of the grandiose halls they inhabit, the temples they built to celebrate the domination of mankind. You feel pride in being able to say you once shook a senator's hand or saw the president in person. Ah, yes, the grand deity himself, His Royal Highness, the President of the United States of America. You speak the title as if you're referring to God Almighty. The vocabulary has changed a bit, but your mindset is no different from that of the groveling peasants of old, who bowed low, faces in the dirt, with a feeling of unworthiness and humility, when in the presence of whatever narcissist had declared himself to be their rightful lord and master. The truth of the matter, back then and today, is that these parasites who call themselves leaders are not superior beings. They are not great men and women. They are not honorable. They're not even average. The people who earn an honest living, from sophisticated millionaire entrepreneurs to illiterate day laborers doing the most menial tasks you can imagine, those people deserve your respect. Those people you should treat with courtesy and civility. But the frauds who claim the right to rule you and demand your subservience and obedience, they deserve only your scorn and contempt. Those who seek so-called high office are the lowest of the low. They may dress better, have larger vocabularies, and do a better job of planning out and executing their schemes, but they are no better than pickpockets, muggers, and carjackers. In fact, they are worse, because they don't want to rob you of just your possessions. They want to rob you of your very humanity, deprive you of your free will, by slowly leeching away your ability to think, to judge, to act, reducing you to slaves in both body and mind. And still you persist in calling them leaders. Leaders? Where is it that you think you're going exactly that would require you to have a leader? If you just live your own life and mind your own damn business, exercising your own talents, pursuing your own dreams, striving to be what you believe you should be, what possible use would you have for a leader? Do you ever actually think about the words that you hear, the words that you repeat? You parrot oxymoronic terms such as the leader of the free world, even pretending for a moment that there is some huge journey or some giant battle that everyone in the entire nation is undertaking together that would require a leader. Why would you ever think, even for a moment, that the crooks that infest this town are the sort of people you should listen to or emulate or follow anywhere? Somewhere inside your mostly dormant brains, you know full well that politicians are all corrupt liars and thieves, opportunistic con men, exploiters and fearmongers. You know all this, and yet you still speak as if you are the ones who are the stupid, vicious animals, while the politicians are the great, wise role models, teachers and leaders without whom civilization could not exist. You think these crooks are the ones who make civilization possible? What belief could be more absurd? Yet when they do their pseudo-religious rituals, deciding how to control you this week, you still call it law, and continue to treat their arbitrary demands as if they were moral decrees from the gods that no decent person would ever consider disobeying. You have become so thoroughly indoctrinated into the cult of state worship that you are truly shocked when the occasional sane person states the bleeding obvious. The mere fact that the political crooks wrote something down and declared their threats to be law does not mean that any human being anywhere has the slightest moral obligation to obey. Every moment of every day, in every location and every situation, you have a moral obligation to do what you deem to be right, not what some delusional bloated windbag says is legal. And that requires you to first determine right and wrong for yourself, a responsibility you spend much time and effort trying to dodge. You proclaim how proud you are to be law-abiding citizens and express your utter contempt for anyone who considers himself above your so-called laws. Laws that are nothing more than the selfish whims of tyrants and thieves. The word crime once meant an act harmful to another person. Now it means disobedience to any one of the myriad of arbitrary commands coming from a parasitical criminal class. To you, the term crime is nearly synonymous with the word sin, implying that the ones whose commands are being disobeyed must be something akin to gods, when in truth they are more akin to leeches. The very phrase, taking the law into your own hands, perfectly expresses what a sacrilege it is in your eyes for a mere human being to take upon himself the responsibility to judge right from wrong and to act accordingly, instead of doing what you do, unthinkingly obeying whatever capricious commands this cesspool of maggots spews forth. You glorify this criminal class as lawmakers and believe that no one is lower than a lawbreaker, someone who would dare disobey the politicians. Likewise, you speak with pious reverence of law enforcers, those who forcibly impose the politicians' every whim upon the rest of us. When the state uses violence, you imagine it to be inherently righteous and just, and if anyone resists, they are, in your eyes, contemptible lowlifes, lawless terrorist criminals. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who helped slaves escape the plantations. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who helped Jews escape the killing machine of the Third Reich. Like the lawless terrorist criminals who were crushed to death under the tanks of the Red Chinese government in Tiananmen Square. Like all the lawless terrorist criminals in history who had the courage to disobey the never-ending stream of tyrants and oppressors who have called their violence authority and law. And that includes the lawless terrorist criminals who founded this country. Everything you think you know is upside down, backwards, and inside out. But what has to take the cake, the height of your insanity, is the fact that you view as violent terrorists the only people on the planet who oppose the initiation of violence against their fellow men. Anarchists, voluntarists, and libertarians. We use violence only to defend ourselves against someone who initiates violence against us. We use it for nothing else. Meanwhile, your belief system is completely schizophrenic and self-contradictory. On the one hand, you teach the young slaves that violence is never the answer. Yet out of the other side of your mouths, you advocate that everyone and everything, everywhere and at all times be controlled, monitored, taxed, and regulated through the force of government. In short, you are teaching your children that the masters may use violence whenever they please, but the slave should never resist. You indoctrinate your children into a life of unthinking, helpless subservience. You are putting the chains around their little necks and fastening the locks tight. And worst of all, you feel good about it. Out of one side of your mouths, you condemn the evils of fascism and socialism and lament the injustices of the regimes of Hitler, Stalin, and Mao. While out of the other side of your mouths, you preach exactly what they did. The worship of the collective, the subjugation of every individual to that evil insanity that wears the deceptive label, the common good. You babble on and on about diversity and open-mindedness, and then beg your masters to regulate and control every aspect of everyone's lives, creating a giant herd of unthinking conformist drones. You wear different clothes and have different hairstyles, and you think that makes you different. Yet all your minds are enslaved to the same club of masters and controllers. You think what they tell you to think, and do what they tell you to do, while imagining yourselves to be progressive, thinking, and enlightened. From your position of relative comfort and safety, you now condemn the evils of other lands and other times, while turning a blind eye to the injustices happening right in front of you. You tell yourself that, had you lived in those other places, in those other times, you would have been among those who stood up against oppression and defended the downtrodden. But that is a lie. You would have been right there with the rest of the flock of well-trained sheep, loudly demanding that the slaves be beaten, that the witches be burned, that the nonconformists and rebels be destroyed. How do I know this? Because that is exactly what you are doing today. Today's injustices and oppressions are fashionable and popular, and those who resist them, you tell yourselves, are just malcontents and freaks, people whose rights don't matter, people who deserve to be crushed under the boot of authority. Isn't that right? You bunch of spineless, unthinking hypocrites, look in the mirror. Take a good look at what you imagine to be righteous and kind. You are the devil's plaything. The crowds of thousands wildly applauding the speeches of Adolf Hitler, that was you. The mob demanding that Jesus Christ be nailed to the cross, that was you. The white invaders who celebrated the wholesale slaughter of those godless redskins? That was you. The throngs filling the Colosseum, applauding as the Christians were fed to the lions, that was you. Throughout history, the perpetual suffering and injustice occurring on an incomprehensible scale, it was all because of people just like you. The well-trained, thoroughly indoctrinated conformists, the people who do as they're told, who proudly bow to their masters, who follow the crowd, believing what everyone else believes and thinking whatever authority tells them to think. That is you. And your ignorance is not because the truth is not available to you. There have been radicals preaching it for thousands of years. No, you are ignorant because you shun the truth with all your heart and soul. You close your eyes and run away when a hint of reality lands in front of you. You condemn as extremists and fringe kooks those who try to show you the chains you wear because you don't want to be free. You don't even want to be human. Responsibility and reality scare the hell out of you, so you cling tightly to your own enslavement and lash out at any who seek to free you from it. When someone opens the door to your cage, you cower back in the corner and yell, "Close it, close it." Well, some of us are finished with trying to save you. We've wasted enough effort trying to convince you that you should be free. All you ever do is spout back what your masters have taught you, that being free only leads to chaos and destruction, while being obedient and subservient leads to peace and prosperity. There are none so blind as those who will not see. And you nation of sheep, would rather die than see the truth.
Yeah, that is, I would say that Mr. Frocken's speech is, Larkin Rose's speech is not. These so-called elected celebrities think we should all revolve around them. Nah, absolutely not. Very philosophical too. You have to look at everything a lot broader. And how I examine his speech, natural law, contact for yourselves, support your loved ones. The hell with victimless crime laws. Jump on the bandwagon because they say so. Get rid of that. Terminate that propaganda matrix out of your soul and spirit. I can go on, but it is very flawless as far as I'm concerned. That's how I see this. Fantastic speech. The video's up there in that link. So everything I'm going to be addressing will be on my Spreaker page. And now I'm just going to do one more. It's in reference to Yemen, the terrible conflicts and what's happening over there in that nation. And it really gets sick to my stomach when how these vultures want to rule the world. And this one here came from the Iran Project. It's a blog. It's entitled Collapse of International Relations in the Light of Yemen War. Al-Waq, that's his name. Activities of the Yemenis Al Nurullah forces subsequent to political and security developments have made the conservatives of Saudi Arabia to lose their temper after a long time and adopt strict regional policies. As he reads here, although some analysts believe that Saudi-led aggression against Yemen is rooted in Saudi's desire to revenge themselves on Iran, in the last attempt of the Saudi king to preserve his throne. But at another level, it can be regarded as a sign of loyalty of Abdul Aziz's son to the realistic approach of power in the New World. Nevertheless, the inefficiencies of this theory have created them some problems and have also made them susceptible to some issues. The Saudi-led aggression against Yemen began with the green light of the U.S. in the framework of the Arabic and regional coalition, whereas no one can deny the collaboration between the anti-Yemen coalition and the U.S. logistical intelligence support to them. Why did Saudi Arabia attack Yemen? Saudi-led aggression against Yemen began on March 26, 2015, with the leading role of Saudi Arabia and with the participation of Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Kuwait, Morocco, Qatar, Sudan, and United Arab Emirates. Besides, a member of the Persian Gulf Cooperation Council alleged the attacks were launched in response to requests from Yemen's former president, Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi. The Saudis also believe that due to their common border with Yemen, recent developments and domestic unrest in Yemen have inflicted some losses on the country. So the Saudi's government believe that they have required legitimacy for intervention to restore stability and order in the country to make attempts to bring back Mansour Hadi to power. In fact, this argument of Saudis is nothing but an old justification in order to maintain hegemony through crime and massacre. This intervention at another level is a continuation of the procedure that the U.S. pursues in its plan for the fight against terrorism and weapons of mass destruction in the region. In brief, it is going to strengthen the international anarchy and serious of human rights violation of human rights. It is obvious that with this action of the Saudi Arabia, the violation of international laws and the Charter of the United Nations as an international commitment have become normalized in the region. This world once again disclosed the double standards of the U.S. as the most important foreign actor. The developments in the world of Islam, however, has shown that the geostrategic interest of Saudi Arabia and the country's supporting plan simply disregard any kind of international laws or concerns over the life of people in several countries. Reflection on violations of international laws in Yemen war. The civilization of international relations emerged with the advent of important international and regional organizations responsible for the commitment of states to their domestic and foreign obligations. What the West Asian countries have faced over the past year has been strengthening of excessive violence and reproduction of new order in the form of a growing disorder. The aggression against Yemen not only changed the organized order of the region and provide the opportunity for expansion of terrorist groups such as ISIS to pursue their territorial interests, but it also has provided new opportunities for expansionist policies for regional players such as Turkey, and eventually it has helped to normalize some forms of modern violence. On the other hand, at the international level, it has become a pretext to legitimize this type of action by other actors. We may conclude that the Arab coalition led by Saudi Arabia has posed a threat to international peace and security. In this regard, their claims about ensuring security and stability in Yemen and their intervention procedures at the outset are instances of violations of many provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, regardless of whether One can regard Mansour Hadi as a legal president of Yemen. Saudi Arabia's initial resort to violence and advocacy groups have targeted the sovereignty of Yemen, and in doing so have violated the principle of equality of countries as an irreversible rule in international relations. Nevertheless, as these countries have disregarded diplomatic solutions and support, this calls into question the goodwill of the countries in the pursuit of international peace and security. On the other hand, according to paragraph 3 of Article 2 of the UN Charter, UN members are required to resolve their differences by peaceful means. Besides, according to the next paragraph of the UN Charter, the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity of political independence of countries is prohibited except where permitted by the Security Council. According to Article 24 of the UN Charter, the primary responsibility for maintenance of peace and security threats in the early stages, except for self-defense, is granted to the Security Council. And if the Council recognizes the difference as a threat to international peace and security, the initial stages under Chapter 6 of the Charter recommend some measures. When a threat to the peace is ensured, the conditions will be provided for taking measures under Chapter 7. It should be noted that when the Saudis invaded Yemen, the Council even did not discuss it under the provisions of Articles 41 and 42. So that the actions of the coalition could be regarded as a request of the Council from the regional entity for preserving and stability and security. The problem is that the Saudi-led coalition was formed without Security Council authorization and without regard to the legal mechanisms. However, the intentions and the political goals to change the balance of the power in the region against the relations between Iran and the West and the Shiite and Wahhabi Salafi movement are quite obvious. Some researchers contend that the conflict in Yemen is not of international type. They believe in an international conflict, at least two states struggle against each other, while in Yemen, no government can properly be identified. Accordingly, the members of the coalition, along with supporters of Yemen against the Ansarullah, comprise of two contending sides of an internal struggle. It is worth mentioning that in both cases, according with the rules of the Geneva Convention and its second additional protocol, the parties to any dispute are responsible for the rights of citizens, individuals, and civilian targets. The party's respect for the rights of its conflict is not relevant to the reciprocal actions, apart from international humanitarian law, which protects citizens, civilians, and non-military targets against the damage caused by war. It is mandatory to respect human rights even in time of war. Yemen and other countries involved are regarded as members of human rights treaties, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention Against Torture and Violent Behavior. While Yemenis not only have experienced cluster bombs, but some sources reported that up to 5,500 were killed and some 20,000 were wounded during the attacks. Displacement as the primary consequence of any war has affected 1.2 Yemenis, imposing total blockade against Yemen and targeting the non-military objects, destruction of cultural and historical monuments in the country, and airstrikes that sometimes reach up to 40 attacks a day. Apart from ignoring the relevance of importance of the parties in conflict, revealed the efficiency of international structure in containing violence and aggression in the international scene. It has also increased poverty, insecurity, and instability through destruction of the country's identity, a problem, and that in long term and the medium term has reversed the superstructure security of Saudis. Nevertheless, it should be a warning to other regional powers such as Iran, Turkey, and even Russia to have broad perspective of the regional developments and reasonably estimate the profit or loss of strengthening the chaos or establishing peace and progress in the region. Man, gentlemen, the person is absolutely correct. A lot of people don't want to talk about what's going on in Yemen, and I find that very disturbing. So I had to look at this because I know there's some bombings happening right now as we speak. This is totally unacceptable. Innocent people are getting destroyed. They just want to abolish that whole entire region, and they want to think that Saudi Arabia should rule everybody. I say, the hell with them. But so contradictory, even with the United States in general. They during the time of the embargo with Cuba, which they said it violates human rights. However, they still want to align with Saudi Arabia, where they treat the people like pieces of garbage. But you don't hear that from the neocons and neolibs, from those crackpots. That's why I'm very critical with these so-called politicians. So there's a bunch of used car salesmen and women. Doesn't matter what party they're in. I totally condemn this with a passion. No one deserves to be at war, especially when you have innocent people getting bombarded. There's even claims there's some depleted uranium got bombed on them in there as well, in that country as well. But I give them hope. Make sure that everyone know. Put your thoughts and prayers in these individuals. That's not just in Yemen, but anywhere there's conflict around the world, even stuff we may not know about. This has to stop in each country, including the United States. We can take the initiative to get rid of those bastards, puppet masters. They're responsible. The United States is a patsy nation. The New World Order don't give a damn about any of us. And this was a very good prime example of what's happening in Yemen. Unacceptable, null and void. But hope for true peace, security, spiritual prosperity in that region and beyond. And that concludes my episode. Thanks for listening. Plus, feel free to download and subscribe and download and share this throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, love letters, hate letters, or send me information that could be possibly interesting, please always use your comments with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker. Send your comments to iHeartRadio, or feel free to email me at LokiLuck3, or just altogether number 3, at gmail.com. Once again, thanks for listening. Must always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.